Welcome to the final episode of Series 84, everyone. This month we have previous guest Satah with us to talk about two games kickstarting as one book, Galactic and Going Rogue. This episode we finish our discussion series along with some really great fanfic, including some wonderful insight into how both of these games can be combined in a campaign. But before we get to that, we do have some calls to action coming up after the show. Here's what to expect.
You can join us here after the show where we have more info on the Galactic and Going Rogue Kickstarter, which is going to be done like today that this episode comes out. So listen up. Brief information about the One Shot Network Patreon drive, as well as information about our Patreon and how to leave a review for our show, as well as our patron thank yous.
With all of that out of the way, enjoy the show, everyone. Well, how do we think character creation for both Galactic and Going Rogue stack up to other systems that we've played or created characters for? You know, we're in the belonging out of belonging space, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely done that before. So.
Yeah, and as we pointed out, I have created two characters that have ties to future children. Coming back to the past. Yeah,
so I think what we've learned is that belonging outside belonging really does allow for time travel future children.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really stacks up. It fits right in with the whether you're playing a Hallmark movie or a Star Wars movie, you can.
Right. But I mean, it's PBTA adjacent, right? So we're talking playbooks, and it fits along with the very easy to follow questions and pick these things from lists and that sort of stuff. And it creates a nice, robust base for your character. I found that it was a really straightforward and fun process.
Yeah, I think it similarly relies really heavily on, I don't know that we talked about this last time, but a thing that like I feel strongly about PBTA games and belonging outside belonging games is that they do really rely heavily on writing. Not from the person building the characters, but from the creator of the game, because you look at it and so much of it is about like these really evocative choices and these very like specific word choices in the descriptions of things. And it really relies, so like I could see it not like us not being able to do that or having to struggle more to do like to make the kinds of like complicated people that we made if we didn't have, such specific adjectives and things. Like those are really, really important to the design of a game like this.
Yeah, I find generally like the belonging outside of belonging design space is way more complex than a lot of people give it credit for. It's like the complexity of trying to write really good tables and that kind of thing, but like expanded in a lot of ways because you don't have like a solid, rigid structure. It like, I think people look at it and because it has much more loose, it's much more loose mechanically than a lot of games assume that it is really easy to design for. And I actually think it's really, really hard to hit that perfect balance of inspirational and evocative, but still letting people like create characters that aren't just one specific person, which is like giving a lot of options.
It's a very small sweet spot of like design to over design, like under design to over design. Yeah, it's a very small target to hit.
And I, happened, of course, I'm pretty biased because I'm very involved in these projects. But I wasn't involved in the development of Galactic. And I think that Galactic was the first Belonging Outside Belonging game I really played in earnest. And with all the love in my heart to a lot of other people in the Belonging Outside Belonging space, it set me up with very different expectations of how solidly some of that stuff would be designed, because it was just like the standard for me. And that's because Riley's really, really good at it. She's really, really good. And it's really difficult to do. So I think that Galactic is fantastic. I love making characters in that. And Going Rogue, obviously, as I said, I've been involved in the creation of Going Rogue, so I do think it's good. I think it's good, and I think it's really interesting.
You're allowed to say so.
It's interesting doing them back to back and really being reminded how specific Going Rogue is. That it really is like you are going to tell a very specific type of story here, and so the characters are like a little bit more narrowly defined than they are in Galactic, but that's something I personally love in games. I love it when games know what they want to do and do it. So I think that's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah. It's a thing we've talked about on the show a few times too. So like doing all of my Annie's reading is like, okay, what does this game say that it like, where does it say the fun is? And then does it do that? Do the mechanics and the structure and the writing all lead you to do that thing? And it's a harder to pull off than I think a lot of people give game designers credit for. Making all of those things go together so that you then can sit down at a table and make whatever random story you're going to make and the game still works.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I do love the relationship setups for these two games specifically. Because it creates those extra emphases for the oomph of the storytelling and the player buy-in for their little corner of the universe that they're creating through their character creation. But then also the player and player relationships being based on your physical position at the table. I always found fascinating because your choice of where you are sitting at the table
makes such a big difference then. Yeah,
exactly.
Or like which window is in which order on whose Zoom screen.
Yeah. And like obviously online it's more random, right? Like who joined the meeting first or whatever, right? Or if it's alphabetical. But like when you're in person and you got a 6-player group and you're playing a game that's Belonging Outside Belonging like this, and you have to choose like relationships based on who's to your left and who's to your right.
I can totally shift your story.
Completely.
On something so little. Like I didn't even think about that like, where you sit down, like our kindergarten seating chart. Like, oh, I have to sit next to Jimmy today.
Actually, in the official, like the Going Rogue actual play that's coming out to support the Kickstarter, we changed our table order partway through because we realized that my character and Austin Walker, who facilitated, we already really knew a lot about how our characters knew each other because of other aspects. Austin was playing the loyal, and so we had the bond. We knew a lot about our relationship. And so we actually, we were sitting beside each other, quote unquote, in our table order. And we realized that it would be a lot more fun to explore, to take the like ask left and right as an opportunity to explore our relationships to other characters. So we just like shifted seats so that we could do that. And it's really cool. The like, it pushes you to consider your relationships to other characters in a way that you might not have. And I think that that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely like it obviously like didn't show that much in our recording because there's only 3 of us. And so like the left and right are like that's the 2 other people, right? But yeah, as you get to bigger and bigger tables, it gets more complicated. You're creating more bonds with different people about different, like the web starts becoming more and more tangled.
Right.
which is a lot of fun.
It's really
too.
interesting. Yeah, because like I'm thinking about my home group, right? I've got a married couple that sit next to each other, and then their daughter sits next to her mom, and then my best friend, who usually runs the game, sits to my right, and then his daughter sits next to him, and between him and the other one that's her age. So like, you've got these like natural, like I'm sitting next to the people that I am closest to, quote unquote. And then that turns into these relationships that are kind of you're forced into if that's your like normal seating order. Right. But if you didn't, if you had like a table of your equal peers, quote unquote, relationship wise, just a bunch of friends sitting together, it makes for a really interesting, like random dynamic out of relationship building, which is really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even like think about that when I'm like thinking about game design, like what order are people sitting at the table? Like that's, I don't think that ever even like crossed my mind. It was just like asking a question to your left and your right just like makes sense. It seems like the easiest way to decide, you know, but it does have design and like character implications in game too. Yeah, exactly. Because it could be a spouse and a best friend, or a spouse and a child, or, you know, it's probably rarely going to be the GM is the person who got there last. Exactly. Yeah, no, you're never going to have like, oh, I have to sit next to my mortal enemy today. Like, you're probably not playing games with your mortal enemies. Exactly. I don't know. Maybe you're really looking for your enemies to lovers.
Who knows? I mean, I have a specific neurosis of like, I always have, if I can't, like, if everybody's just sitting, I can't sit in the same line as them. I have to like create a circle by being on the opposite side. And so I will like, I often am sitting across from somebody I know, not next to. And so I actually do set myself up often in situations where the people on either side of me aren't people I necessarily know well, because I sat across from the person that I know well, because that's most comfortable for me. And now it's like, okay, how do our characters know each other? What do you think?
And they are such like loaded questions too. You know, they're not like, oh, like, tell me how you know each other, or, you know, like, it's like, tell me about a time where I betrayed you. And you're like, I don't know you. So
need buy-in.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really good. That and the pillars, like the defining the pillars was a really fun experience.
Yes.
Like picking effectively 2 to 3 things per pillar was really cool to kind of shape how the world looks, right?
Yeah, it like, I find pillar creation so cool because it just like, I don't want to say naturally, because Abby, like you can absolutely have difficult or ungenerative experiences with that kind of mechanic. But for me, it so naturally lends itself to having conversations about what we want the game to be and what, like, when you have 2 options in front of you and you're trying to decide as a group, talking through which of those options you want to choose is so cool. And like, it teaches you so much about the world that you're creating when you're like, oh, I do want this option more. Why is that? Why is that more interesting to me? What does that tell me about what I want and what I don't want? And like, what does all of this, what does the combination of these things tell us about how we're going to be interacting with that world? And I think that that is so, so cool. And just a really effective way to like do a group world building, basically.
Yeah. We talk about it a lot. You know, about like character creation sort of signaling often to the GM, like where your interests lie in a game. Like these are, you know, like I've created these relationships for my characters, or I've given myself these flaws sort of like as an indication to a GM that like these are the spaces that I'm interested in exploring, and how that can kind of, you know, telegraph things that you want to happen later. And I think it's all the more important to have things like the pillars and, you know, choosing like the desires and things like that when you're playing a GM-less game, and you don't have somebody that's kind of like setting that up, you know, bringing those things in personally to be able to have a group discussion and say like, okay, we together have decided that the Parliament, you know, desires guaranteed victories, popular support for the liberation, peace through compromise. Like, okay, we've indicated that like these are the things that are important. And so when you get to a point where like, you know, things can kind of stall, or you're like, we're not sure where we're going or something like that, you have those things to go back to as a group and say, well, you know, we decided that the parliament is interested in guaranteed victories. So like, where does our plan fall in that? Like, is this something that they would back? Because, you know, like, what are the risks? And to kind of like help keep things on a track and build some scaffolding around it. Because I think GMless experiences too, especially when you come from something like a D&D or whatever, you know, where there's a tendency toward railroading sometimes, and certainly like a very directionally focused game, it can sometimes feel overwhelming if you don't have the right amount of scaffolding. And so I think the pillars are really interesting in that way, and kind of expand, like I said, on that idea of telegraphing what things you're interested in.
And I love that guaranteed victories is what is a victory? Who defines victory?
Yeah. Victory for whom? At what cost?
As we know, or as our listeners probably know, Going Rogue is a game about you're going to basically succeed at a mission but die in the process. And so it's got that like Rogue One sort of tragedy through succeeding that you don't get to experience too much in a lot of games, but like that's a victory for the parliament, but like not for our characters.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But again, like that goes back to that sort of like evocative choices too. Like, what does it mean? What does it, you know, that we're not so like guaranteed victories. Like, oh, okay, we only do things when we know we can win. Well, it's much more open-ended than that, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. I know one thing that you mentioned when we asked, you know, what you look for in character creation, and I was excited because we get to this question now, is how do you feel like the process of character creation for this game reinforces the feel or sets people up for what playing it is going to be like?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, definitely part of it is if done well and in a like truly sort of democratic or group way, especially world creation, I think it starts to like be like, we're all involved here, you know, we're all going to be doing this. And I think that for sort of more character specific stuff, the intensity and specificity of the questions you're asking other characters, I think really sets you up to be like, hey, we're creating characters who have lived lives. And like, this is a world that is lived in. We know each other. We've had experiences together, at least in some way. We are hopping into something like we are continuing a story here. We aren't necessarily seeing the very beginning of it. And I think that is cool because like the process of moving from character creation to play in belonging outside belonging games can be really difficult. It is the hardest part of the game, I think, is getting started. But like it gives you a lot. The process of creating a character and putting them in relation to other characters ideally sets you up to actually get started. Like be like, ooh, let's see that moment that we were talking about. Let's have our first scene. We said that we had a fight, you know, like, let's see, how are we dealing with that? Like, this is the first meeting that we're at after our big fight. We haven't talked in 2 weeks. Like, what does that look like? That kind of thing. And I think that it's interesting because in a lot of ways, the character creation is considerably more guided than the actual play is. And so the transition out of it can be difficult. But I think that it funnels relatively well because you start character creation picking very specific options. Like be like, here's a list. I'm going to choose 2 things from this list. And then you go a little bit more broad where it's like, okay, and now I'm going to have relationships. I can choose between 2 options for who this person is. And then I can define them however I want. I know that they're my dramatic ex, but what does that mean? Who are they to me? And then going even more openly into like, here's a scenario that happened between our 2 characters. What was it? We have there's a prompt for it, but it's still like really open. Like, this is what we're going to be doing. And then that is really like the off ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, the game is like, you have a lot of guidance with the moves and that kind of thing. But after that, it really is like, okay, we provided you a lot of guide rails at the beginning and then slowly moved you along to making your own big decisions about the plot. And now do that. Now keep doing that. And that's really cool.
Yeah. Like one of the things that really clicked for me was when we were doing the NPC relationships, right? Because traditionally when I see NPC, I think non-playable characters, but really it's non-player characters where player character has a very specific definition of this is the character, the main character that you play. Mm-hmm. But when you are selecting the moves for the NPCs here, it's the moves that the NPCs are able to do. And that means somebody has to play the NPCs. And in a GM-less quote unquote game, that's the other players at the table. Yeah. So it really starts setting your mind of, oh, we're not just playing our characters. All of us will be taking turns playing random other characters within the story as we're building the story collaboratively together. So it's like, it's collaboration all the way down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that I said this in the creation episodes, but like the simplicity of the like adjective moves for the NPCs, it really is such a blessing when you are hopping into one of those NPCs, because it gives you that perfect little nugget of like, okay, I know what you want from this character. I can embody the move and the thing that you chose for that as a starting point. And it just makes it so much easier to like fulfill that role in the story as you're like hopping between characters and stuff. And it's really cool. And I find it so fun. I love hopping between characters in GM-less games, and specifically in belonging outside belonging games like this. Yeah.
I've been seeing it a lot lately in a lot of different actual plays and stuff as well, where we've got our main characters, but I also play this character and this other character and this other character. And they're all just like these random characters. And even games that have traditional GMs in them, right? Yeah. They're offloading specific NPCs to other players. So like, you know, player A will always be playing this particular NPC when we're in scenes together. And that might set up I'm having conversations with myself, but that's also fun, right? Yeah. So it's really interesting, like to flip your mindset of traditional, this is the only character I'm playing, to I can play pretty much anybody else in the world except the other player characters at the table.
And I think that can be a difficult flip to make mentally, but once you make it, it's really cool and can be very liberating, I think. Like when you first have that moment of like, oh, we have this person is going to come in. Who wants to play this NPC? And there's kind of a moment of everyone being like, wait, that could be any of us. Who has a sense of this? Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think having those relationship questions too, like between people, really sets the tone for this idea that other people are going to be helping make really important decisions about your character.
Absolutely,
in the game too. Yeah. That like things that have come up, like again, goes back to that like collaborative, like not railroading, sort of like wide open spaces thing. But you know, this realization that you know, you're going to be having these conversations with NPCs and things like that. And it's going to be your fellow players that are helping to make these like integral story decisions for your character. Yeah. And I think it sets the tone and the expectation for that kind of thing, that like, this is something like we are, you know, on the same team, even though I'm setting up complicated relationships between my character and your character. It's something that's being done together. And just like a level of trust being created there.
That's such a great point. Yeah. It's especially with how the like weak moves work, where like by necessity, you are going to have to be creating complications for yourself and other people. A weak move is by far at its best when everybody joyfully makes the situation worse. Like to say, you know, okay, I'm going to do a weak move here. I'm going to bail. Like I'm going to say, I've had enough of this and I'm going to walk away. That is always more fun at the table when everybody reacts like, ooh, okay, that's awful. Like, here's the bad thing that happens and here's how I can play into that and keep the story going. And like, yeah, really building on that, which you're so right, is very set up with a lot of the questions being like, hey, I recently did something to you that wasn't nice. What was it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think like setting up people to play in some of that discomfort too, right? Because I think, again, there's like a risk aversion in some sort of more traditional games, you know, along with that power fantasy thing that a lot of those games are built for. It's, you know, you don't want to have relationships where like the two questions I asked were, how did I put you at risk and were you angry about it? And then what lie did you catch me in? That I like very front and center was like, hey, I have a flawed character. You get to decide what ways I was flawed. And like that I'm like building this trust with you to say like, these are things about my character that you've determined that later on when there's conflict with NPCs and everything, like you will be playing that person, but I still trust that like we can have this play experience together.
Yeah, that's really cool.
A lot of games don't have that sort of trust exercise, right? And I love when it happens because it does, like, this is my baby. You can make a decision about it and it will become part of them.
Yeah.
Is a really like evocative and cool experience in a game, and part of why collaborative world building is so powerful and so potent, because you're building something together and it creates not only a connection in the story, it creates a connection between the two people that are making those decisions.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think it also like really sets you up for this idea of like, hey, we're going to be making problems for ourselves and each other here too.
Yeah.
That, you know, like without a GM, without that sort of like, you know, like one person acting in that adversarial role, that like we all have to be that. Otherwise, like this isn't going to be a very fun game if we're all like, and everything goes great and nothing goes wrong ever. Like it's going to be over really quick. And so to set it up,
it could be very therapeutic.
Maybe, but that's obviously like not what Going Rogue in particular is set up to do. But like setting it up right away from those questions in character creation, that like, hey, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Tell me how.
Exactly.
I think it's a really important, like, you know, setting up the groundwork for what's going to happen.
One of the questions I love to ask people that are very close to the games that we cover is, what do you feel is one of the biggest flaws of character creation in these systems? And what is your favorite part?
Interesting. I think that for the flaws, as much as I love creating the NPCs and love the process of it, that is often the point where I stumble the most, where I've spent all of this time, like I've started creating a character already, and then sometimes I look at this list of relationships and go like, oh, I don't really understand why my character would have these specific relationships. That is sort of often a stumbling block for me. It's usually, you know, usually there are enough options that it isn't a huge deal, because it's like, I can find something that works here. But there is definitely like, that is a particularly hard balance to strike of broad and specific. And I think that that is often the thing that I like trip up on the most.
I tripped up on it a little bit with my Going Rogue character, that I'm like looking at these and I'm like, I just don't know that like this fits my vibe. Like, I don't know that any of these are like, and it's like, they're not like wrong or like bad choices, or I'm like, I would never pick that or anything like that. It's just like, oh, this is just like not what I saw for myself, I guess. But like the reality is, obviously, we haven't started playing. So like, I haven't seen anything for myself yet. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I can definitely get that. Like looking at that list, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know. Do I really need a contact or a criminal that I know? Or, you know, like,
and
am I not criminal enough for
like,
you?
I mean, I love massaging things to make them work. So that I definitely like, for me, even when that is difficult. That's something I get a lot of joy in, but I understand that it could be frustrating for a lot of people. And I know that that's also something that a lot of people would fix by just making up their own, which is always an option. It's just never an option that I take. Yep. And I guess the one other thing I'll mention is just that, like, it isn't even necessarily a flaw in character creation. It's just something you have to be very specific about. If you don't look at the moves for a playbook before you make your character, you could really accidentally make a character that can't engage with your mechanics properly. It's not likely because everything is really created as a whole, right? And so if you follow things along and you don't just like make everything up, you will probably end up with a character where it makes sense to make their moves. But you could, like, theoretically, you just have to be really careful to like pick a playbook that has a play style you want. Like if you aren't somebody who's going to have a lot of fun causing social problems, specifically choosing a playbook that has a lot of like your weak moves are cause an argument or distrust somebody who you have evidence to trust and that kind of thing. And your strong moves are stuff like if you don't want to do action stuff and your strong moves are like bust the door down or take the perfect shot and that kind of thing. Right. You could end up accidentally making a character that doesn't do that. I don't think it's super likely, but I feel like it's worth saying just because, like, I think that the moves are so important to like inspiring and supporting gameplay that it takes like being really deliberate about that is important for it to be satisfying. I'm not sure if that like all made sense in that context, but yeah.
No, it definitely did. Yeah, that like you do want to make sure that like you are picking things that are not just, you know, like you can go off vibes, and it does like seem for the most part like the moves very much fit the vibes. But just like being sure that those are the vibes that you want, because otherwise you're going to be stuck like not being able to do things. You know, like one of my vulnerable moves is lie to a comrade about your capabilities or intentions. And so if you're the kind of person that is like, I'm not really comfortable lying to people, or I don't feel like my character would lie, or, you know, something like that, it's like, this is maybe not the character for you. Like so much of my stuff is centered around like letting people down and lying to them. That like, if that's not your thing, that's fine. But be aware of that. Totally. Like, know what you want.
Exactly. I mean, you could play somebody that doesn't lie, but then that locks out a lot of those extra weak moves, and that you're just limiting yourself. And now you only have maybe a handful of moves instead of the whole gambit.
Right. For sure. But also, what do you like best?
I mean, I love to ask lefts and rights, those like building relationships between characters. I again, Fiasco, like I love Fiasco so much and I love the whole game, but I do specifically the setup phase of old school Fiasco, classic Fiasco, where you are building this network of connections and complications. It's just my favorite thing, to the extent that one of my games, Hook, Line, and Cyber, has been very fairly described as what if the setup phase of Fiasco was the whole game? That's kind of what I'm doing. And like, yeah, absolutely fair. Because it's true. And so I love that part. I think that is my favorite. I enjoy a lot of that stuff, but I think that for me, things start to really come alive once our characters are in conversation with each other.
Yeah, because I think you start like existing in a world. You're not just like, you're like, okay, like I've made a person, but now like I exist in a larger context. And that's like, it makes things so much more complicated, but also so much more interesting.
Absolutely.
To kind of like be alive and like multidimensional. Is it time for our favorite part?
Yes, I've been waiting since last week for this.
I've been waiting my whole life. No. It is time for the fan fiction segment of our show, where we pretend that we're going to do anything with these characters. By which I mean, we don't play the game, but we talk about what would happen if we did.
Yes.
I'm particularly curious to talk about, you know, like kind of the link between our Galactic and Going Rogue characters. and how we see that working or going.
Yeah, because we specifically made them in the same universe, right? And we've got plenty of links between each of the characters in each of the groups.
Right.
But yeah, I'm very curious, how do we know the other group from our Galactic character's viewpoint or from Going Rogue's viewpoint?
Yeah.
I have to assume that my knight errant has some sort of space between maybe even academic or just cultural or something connection to your Nova, Ryan. Like that would make some amount of sense to me. And I do think like like meta structure, I love the idea of playing Galactic until we get a big piece of information and then like playing Going Rogue to see their whole mission and then whatever critical thing they got, like moving back into Galactic to play out the rest of like, here's how we succeeded off of their sacrifice.
Like, yeah. And like my ideal scenario would be Galactic with our Galactic characters. And then the 3 characters we made are NPCs in our Galactic campaign.
Yeah.
And then when we get to play the Going Rogue campaign, we've already known them in gameplay.
Yes.
Which would be a lot of fun.
I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, because like I definitely see like I've got a diplomat and a spy. So like I definitely think that those kinds of things can go together pretty easily. But I also, you know, we also have this mechanic that just loves gossip and likes to be in the know. And so like the idea that like that would be a very good contact for a spy.
Oh,
you
true.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that there's a lot of connecting points that we can make between the 2 sets of characters. But yeah, I really, really do love the idea of like playing Galactic. And then when we get to the session that is like about this critical mission, it's like, okay, you know, now we're playing Going Rogue. And then like once we, you know, we know that we've succeeded at that or how we've succeeded in everything, we can go back to playing Galactic and be like, okay, now we play out the world after this big event. Yeah. You know, after we've blown up the Death Star.
How do our characters feel about it, right? As the liberation is celebrating this victory.
With these people we know.
We're celebrating our friends no longer existing.
Right. Yeah. And like, how does that complicate things? And, you know, like what happens to your family after this is over? Like, are they still neutral? Are they still, you know, like... Like, what happens to my mother?
Right. Well, because she's a politician too, right?
Yeah, but she's with a mandate.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I bet that connection would be so that would, I bet, do a lot to set up whatever the big Going Rogue mission is, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we could do so much.
Because I know, I do see, the Knight Errant and the Nova. I can see us maybe having gone through the I guess the Youngling school together or whatever.
Interesting, yeah.
You know, the Youngling equivalent. So like we grew up in that sort of you know, familiarity as like, hey, we're learning this together. We're friends from the old days.
Oh, you guys know each other from Space Between Elementary.
Yeah.
I definitely see like my knight errant walking into my mechanic's shop and just stopping dead because there's an astroblade on one of the work tables, and it's just like, where did you get that? What are you doing? And the mechanic just like, oh, it's so and so. Yeah, they're like, they joined the crew, blah blah blah, and then having a little bit of a like, starting off suspicious and distrustful, like, you're here, like, what is your agenda? Like, what are you up to? And then, absolutely doing the like, oh, wait, we know each other from training.
From back in the day when we played dodgeball together. Which dodgeball is canon in this universe, obviously. I should know that. It works differently in different gravities, which is what makes it difficult. Yeah.
Because your character, your Knight Errant would have known of my royal history, because I don't think I would have hit it totally back then, right?
Oh,
so that adds an extra fun layer at that point.
Oh gosh,
I'm very curious how my convert works with the mix, aside from like they're just new here, but they do have a friend that joined first. That's part of the intelligence pillar.
Yeah. Maybe your convert can be a diplomatic intern or something.
Well, right. Well, I'm the hacker of the Going Rogue group, right? So I do a lot of hacking and information gathering, probably for the intelligence like portion of things.
Yeah.
And I would probably say that my friend who joined earlier probably knows Amelia, your diplomat. Would make a lot of sense if you wanted a connection with somebody that was in that more intelligence gathering, capacity, because you're already gathering your own intelligence on people with the device that you have.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that's like, one of the things that we determined was this, weird device that I have that like I can overhear communications and things like that. And I can certainly see where like somebody who can do some hacking can potentially help with some of that,
Yeah. Is it you always overhearing things yourself, or do you trust maybe my friend and maybe a little bit this hacker to kind of help things progress along faster?
Yeah, I mean, whatever works for the story, right?
I think that could be really interesting as well.
Absolutely. I really love the idea of like all like those characters existing as NPCs for us, and sort of like important contacts for things, and then having to like all of us in like our galactic characters sort of like setting up this mission, and then our Going Rogue characters being the people that have to then carry it out.
I mean, to be fair, you could always play them too in the galactic campaign until you're fateful, because you're already hopping characters. Right? Just have them be the B story at times.
Exactly.
There is something so satisfying about the idea of trying to distill the PCs down to an essential part to give them just an NPC move, like a couple of NPC moves. That sounds so fun. As like a weird, like filtering a character into almost another system, but not quite kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So like, I guess the question then, like, what words do we use for those Going Rogue NPCs? Like what adjective do we use? Can we pick those?
I would love to take a look.
Okay, let me open my little book.
I know I need the are we looking at the Galactic?
Yeah, let's see, because we'd be playing Galactic. So
traits, yes.
Yeah, I want to know what the traits are for our, like what move would we give them?
I know.
Oh, we've never gotten to do this. Well, hold on. Okay.
I'm looking for my character specifically right now. Innocent makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
for
sure. That's the answer, obviously.
There is a trait called gossipy, which seems to be kind of, I think that my mechanic is gossipy and inventive. I'm getting moves like listen in and gain a token, and give someone a juicy piece of information and give them a token, or tinker with an object or idea and gain a token, fix something broken and give the one who needed it a token. That sounds like a fantastic, but I mean, they're already in Galactic, so they don't really need it, but that just fits so perfectly for them.
Right. That would absolutely. I hesitate to choose innocent because I've already got my innocent family.
Yeah.
So that would kind of double up the innocence for that play. I'm wondering if I could lean into the hesitant, doesn't like to get stressed, sort of maybe anxious.
Oh yeah, I think
anxious could work very well.
I think I would pick cunning, probably. Reveals that you've been one step ahead this whole time and gain a token, or lie to someone and give them a token if they believe it.
The Knight Errant, actually, I kind of love the idea of giving them ancient, which just because the moves, like the move ask how are you going to do better than what came before and give them a token seems like a really interesting thematic parallel, or draw a parallel between then and now and gain a token. And the other, again, this would be doubling up specifically with the future vision child burdened. The Knight Errant has a move, a vulnerable move that is sigh and join someone on their quest. And burdened has a move that is sigh deeply and gain a token. So of course.
Yes. I love it.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
I do like that a lot.
Yeah,
so it seems like it's easy to kind of hack the two games together, even, which is really cool. Just the emotional stakes of going rogue feel like they're high, right?
I feel like it would make them so much higher. Oh my gosh.
Into a campaign of Galactic, which is honestly brilliant why these two games are fused together in this Kickstarter, because like they utilize the same system, belonging outside belonging. The play is very similar to one another. You got completely different character types, right? You've got archetypes more geared towards this high like emotion, doomed to quote unquote succeed/fail.
Yeah.
Right.
Succeed at a cost.
Like
high cost.
Yeah. But then like Galactic's got your campaign like level pacing to it. So if you blend them together, and then at some point that mission's going to hit and you're going to swap over to now it's go time with our going rogue characters, that's going to be intense.
Yeah.
Knowing the outcome of that game session for these NPCs that you've been playing for however long.
And then like, I mean, Rogue One ends with a handoff back to a Galactic game, like the moment of everybody running through the ship and then lightly terrifying CGI Carrie Fisher turning around to say that they've just been delivered hope.
Oh my God. I saw that movie in the theater like the day after Carrie Fisher died. And it was like my sister and I are just like sobbing. We're like, oh God, it was really emotional.
I think CGI Carrie Fisher hit differently than CGI Tarkin for me in that movie because of the emotional stakes of it, because it was so soon after her death. Because that is literally like, okay, cool. Now the games that Galactic is about, the movies that Galactic is about are about to happen. So there we go. Let's go. Switch back.
Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, there's a lot of lead up to the stuff that happens in Rogue One that very well fits within the, Galactic play style as well.
Definitely.
Particularly, which we've now seen a lot more of in Andor. And I would argue that like a lot of the later stuff that Andor is doing is because it's so much about the creation of the rebellion. It's not quite Galactic, but it probably fits. It could the structure of it fits really well into switching between the two of them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think the last thing I want to add to this fanfic is like the mission that succeeds helps our Galactic characters like primary goals as well as like a side effect.
Absolutely,
for sure.
And seeing them bring that home would be like so satisfying after like playing out the like emotional intensity of the Going Rogue game, like sort of like keeping that momentum up to then see the Galactic characters succeeding in the next couple sessions would feel so good. That would be so fun.
That's like some beautiful closure. Like,
oh. Ooh, I got chills.
Well, dear listeners, if you decide to play these games this way, please tell us everything. We need to know.
100%.
We need to know. So good.
It's so good. Well, let's go ahead and get into our final segment, the advancement discussion, and let's go ahead and take it up a level.
Take it up a level. Take it up a level.
Belonging outside belonging have advancement?
No. That's my question.
Okay. So I guess this is the part where I say the line. In this segment, we cover character advancement and growth in this system. This doesn't really have advancement. So really, we're just talking about growth.
Yep. And narrative advancement, right?
Yes. Yes. Which, you know, like I think we've covered a little bit in our fan fiction, but I'd love to know more, like specifically.
What are the mechanics behind narrative advancement in this game?
First, I just want to briefly address, like, I guess you could make a real stretch of an argument that there is a mechanical advancement happening and then unhappening all of the time because of how the token system works. Like, you do in a session gain resources to use and then spend them, which is its own type of advancement, I guess. But it's just that it's much more of a like roller coaster than a like steady power creep, unless you're me and you really just mostly spend most of the game doing weak moves and never spending tokens. And then at the very end of the game be like, okay, I guess I can do 8 good things in a row. So I'm just going to fix everything, I guess, with my 8 tokens.
Yep. So we made all these decisions and made everything terrible. I'd like to use all my tokens to make everyone live happily ever after. Thank you.
Perfect. For narrative advancement, I mean, Going Rogue has a very specific structure to its narrative. It is at a certain point, you know, you all agree to go on the mission that is ultimately going to kill you, most likely. And I know that the structure of it is a little bit in development right now, so I don't want to speak too definitively on what it is or is going to be, but Going Rogue specifically very much at a certain point kicks in and is like, okay, you're on this mission, here's some stuff that's going to happen. And then once that stuff happens, you unlock a move that is sacrifice yourself and succeed, essentially. So it actually has very specific narrative advancement and that is mechanized in a way that Galactic very much does not. In Galactic, you're really like the advancement and the satisfaction that you're getting from it are really entirely on your group and like setting up a cool story and playing it out and that kind of thing, which definitely can be difficult. But when you hit it, it is truly the most satisfying thing in the entire world, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, in a system like that, you're as quote unquote powerful as you're going to be throughout the whole game. Your options are as much as they are at the start as they are at the end.
And you gain power by getting in trouble. Like you have to, in order to gain narrative power, you have to be vulnerable in some way.
Absolutely. Yeah, because even the the lateral moves that are in the game is you still have to have a token to do that. And the way to get tokens is either somebody does a lateral move to you, which means that they did a weak move previously, or you have to do a weak move.
You can get them from pillars, but any move from a pillar that's going to give you a token is going to get you in trouble. It's going to be like, you know, I'm foreshadowing a larger threat. You walk into the room and you see like a terrifying shadow cross across the window of a ship coming through. You're going to be in trouble shortly. Here's a token so that you'll be able to deal with it later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It really does like kind of, I don't want to say force you because it's the point of the game, right? Like it's why you're playing the game. So I don't want it to make it sound like you have to make bad choices. Too bad. You have to be comfortable putting yourself and other people into these complicated situations. That's like just the kind of system that it is. You know,
now you could have a play agreement of everybody else is making the bad decisions and then they keep feeding one player all the tokens. So they're only doing cool stuff. Right. But
that's not how you should play this game.
It'd be a fascinating experiment.
You play however you want.
Me trying to min-max a belonging outside belonging game.
I'm going to say, no, don't do that. I can't stop you. I'm not in your home.
I think it could be fun. I think it could be an interesting, weird story dynamic of the like quote unquote Mary Sue character that is.
I can't even be mad about it because I would be the person that'd be more than happy to constantly be making the bad decisions.
Same.
I would be totally comfortable with that.
Right?
Like that's I would love to only make weak moves. So like that's great.
Yeah.
Great.
And then to have that character that only does strong moves or maybe just lateral moves as well, like then decides to make a weak move at some point. I think that would be a pretty fun experience. Sure. Yeah.
I am glancing at the lateral moves, like the diplomat having show someone you believe in them and give them a token. The idea of this character who never makes a weak move, the diplomat just constantly gassing them up to be like, here are tokens. I believe in you. You can do anything. It's great.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Constantly like, wow, you're so strong. I can't believe it. Just always make the best decisions. Oh my gosh. I love you so much. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think well, and then the diplomat obviously has the vulnerable move of get captured. Like, you're going to tell me that I'm not going to just only use that move for the rest of the game?
Genuinely one of the best moves in the in the server for my Galactic group.
This is like the only playbook worth playing. Yeah. Is
our like.
I mean, if only one of the vulnerable moves was also fake dating, then I would be like,
that's such a good idea.
I'd be like, great. Fake dating, get captured. Done.
My friend who played a diplomat in our game of Galactic, her name on Discord possibly still is, but definitely was for several months, get captured. Because it was constant. It was just like, it was like, okay, so we're in this scene. That's great. I think we're coming to a point where we don't quite know what's going to happen next. But just palm slam the get captured button.
Right.
Yeah. And there she goes.
It's so funny because you think of the Star Wars movies and every single diplomat is always getting captured. Without fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can think of 3 like Clone Wars episodes off the top of my head and like the movies themselves. And it's just like, it's all over the place.
Yeah. It's obviously the best, most important move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got distracted because I was
captured.
That happens to Mon Mothma like 5 times over the course of Rebels and Andor. At least. So yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh gosh, if we played this game, I was gonna be using that all the time. Mm-hmm. The spy's only job would be to get me uncaptured. Pretty sure.
Absolutely.
I feel like 90% of what my spy is doing is uncapturing my diplomat. Rescuing, that's the word for uncaptured.
I guess so.
It's interesting.
There's a word for that already. Amazing.
It's so good. I have not looked at my vulnerable moves for the Nova until just now. Because for some reason I was like, oh, that's gameplay stuff. But it tells you so much about the characters. Assume good intentions from someone who means you harm. Like, I would be doing that all the time as a Nova because that's just who I am.
Lose control of yourself and put someone in harm's way. You're like, yeah, I guess,
like,
you know.
There's a move in here that
assume good intentions.
Just feeds tokens to me based on my gameplay style of like, score. I'm going to be flooded with tokens.
Gosh. So women and tokens over here.
Jabba the Hutt's not always a bad guy.
Yeah, like he's just got to feed his family. He's just trying to boost the local economy.
The mechanic specifically has a vulnerable move that is just an incredible quest generator. That's just, say, fixing this will take a resource we don't have. Just at any point, like, oh, we need something to do next. I can't fix this. We're out of discombobulators. All right, here we go. We go to get some.
Time to fly to the
quest to find discombobulators.
Yeah, we got to fly to the Milwaukee airport and go to the sign that says recombobulation area, which is a real part of our airport here, folks. Funny. There is a sign after you get to the TSA line. It says recombobulation area, and it's a bunch of benches for you to sit and put your shoes back on. It's my favorite part of the airport. Have you never seen it? Oh, God.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Right after you go through the TSA lines at Mitchell International Airport, there's a big sign that says recombobulation area. And it's just a set of benches.
We need to introduce recombobulation as a word back into the standard vernacular of the English language.
Yep. It's official airport sign. So that's where we would fly. Like, we can't find that part. We have to go to Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
They probably
and
have
now Milwaukee is part of the Galactic Empire.
Yeah,
canon.
Mm-hmm. Canon.
It's a city planet.
Yep. Known for its beer and cheese.
Known for its beer and cheese.
Yep.
And the infamous cheese hats that people wear as a fashion experience.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's actually just aliens that are just made of cheese, probably.
Oh no, gross.
Yeah. And our very large clock is actually bigger than Big Ben, but no one wants to admit it.
Scandal.
Nope.
The Allen Bradley Clock Tower is bigger than Big Ben. I said it.
They don't call it Big Allen, though.
No, they don't. Because that would be weird.
Yeah, Big Allen sounds like a guy I'm not totally sure about being at the same party with. Like someone's like, "Oh no, Big Allen's gonna be coming over after 10." I'm like, I might turn in early. Like
I think I need to leave
Allen's
before Big Allen gets
here. I don't know if I can deal with that tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. Big Allen takes the party a little bit too far. Like he's like not a bad guy.
He's just always like his lowest is an 8, and he's usually at a 9. That's it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, like nothing against Big Allen. He's just,
he's a lot.
He's a lot.
Takes up a lot of space.
Wow, bonus character creation cast. Big Allen.
Big Allen.
Amazing.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else that we need to cover before we close out on this amazing series? I mean, this is the final episode. It's coming out the final day of the Kickstarter. So, like, honestly, go back this if you haven't.
Yeah.
This is...
I would like
this
to
is a fantastic experience.
Submit an additional stretch goal, and that is a table that you can roll on that tells you how many apostrophes you have to put in your name.
I'm gonna bring that to the team Discord and pitch it immediately.
Yeah, thank you. If you can, let the development team know that this is like,
will do.
Yeah, if you reach like $500,000 or something, I will personally, I will volunteer my time to create a table that you roll on that tells you how many apostrophes.
Perfect. As long as we have a writer, then it's okay. Like we don't want to have to like sign someone new up. But if you're already
no. Yeah, I'm totally.
I like the thought that it's a D6 table, but the number of apostrophes
like
is not in 1 through 6 order.
Yeah, if you roll a 2, it's 6 apostrophes. A 3 is 4 apostrophes. And, you
got to add the randomness.
Exactly. It is a D6 table, though. Yes.
Well, good, because the box set of Going Rogue and Galactic and Going Rogue comes with custom D6s.
Yay! See? Perfect.
Well, Satah, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Galactic and Going Rogue. This has been a phenomenal experience.
Yeah, this was wonderful. They are games that are truly very, very dear to my heart, and I hope that I did them justice in how I was talking about them and trying to facilitate it a little bit, and talking about this crowdfunder that truly has been an enormous part of my life and an even bigger part of Jess's life for the past few months. I hope I did it good, because they're really good.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, I had a blast, and I know like I said, like some of our patrons have listened to some of the early episodes already, and they're very excited about it too. So I'm hopeful, and it sounds like the Kickstarter's already going well. Yeah. So people who love guaranteed victories, like the Parliament we created, go back this Kickstarter. It's a guaranteed victory.
Exactly. There you go. Wrapping it all in a nice little bow there. Well, Satah, can you remind everyone where they can find you online and what other things you have going on?
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky at posetachips.gaygothvibes.online. It's very long. Yep. And I have a website that is gaygothvibes.online. I had to register a subdomain to make my Blue Sky name longer because it was funny to me. And you can find a
like if you're not doing it for the bit, what is the point?
You got to commit
honestly.
to the bit as hard as possible. I very briefly, I'm a musician, and one of my projects is named People You Meet Outside of Bars. And somebody came up to me at a show one day and said, "Oh, I can't believe I've never seen you play. I've seen your posters all over town for months, but I thought you were an improv group, so I never went." And I was like, "No, I'm a weird feelingsy singer-songwriter, but I understand why you thought that." And yeah, music, tabletop stuff, gaygothvibes.online, and check out my podcast Folio, where I do invite guests to play the same like solo and epistolary games as me and sort of weave them together to show off different ways to experience those games. It's a lot of fun. And it's called Folio. I probably already said that, but I'm not sure. So it's called Folio, and the name of it is Folio, the podcast Folio.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. What was it?
Show notes.
What was it called?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Sorry.
It's gone now.
Well, Satah, thank you so much for sitting down with us to do this. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We will be back next week.
Call to action.
Yeah, like that. Okay, so this time we actually get to the fan fiction. And I think this is really like the pinnacle of this discussion. I mean, I've loved this discussion and this character creation and all that as a whole.
Yeah.
But I think when we get to the fan fiction, we really show what these two games can do, especially in combination, and why, why they're kickstarting together, why this makes sense, you know?
It makes so much sense.
And, you know, like they definitely are different games. Like they do work a little bit differently. Obviously, they're both, you know, using that same system, and there are a lot of similarities. But I think just like the fan fiction really brought it all together. It just like it really just brought it home in a way that like doesn't always happen with our fan fiction. I always appreciate that section, and I always have so much fun talking about our characters. But this one like really, I think, drove home like what this was all about in a way that we don't always get to do. I mean, we also don't usually cover two games at once, to be fair. So
exactly,
this was different in lots of ways, but
and getting that idea of combining them in a longer campaign really just adds to the emotional weight of the Going Rogue game, because now you're playing characters that you do know, you have experience, you have played with, and alongside from your main character.
I think it just makes you care about both parts of it so much more.
Yeah. And then like feeling the emotional impact of going from main campaign to, okay, we know these characters are going to die, and then going back to the main campaign again. Yeah. Just exquisite.
Good gut punch.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we thoroughly enjoyed covering these games. I know fans of the show have been enjoying these episodes, and really happy we were able to have Satah on, and that Jess was able to reach out to us for the series, and really grateful for how this one turned out. So
me too.
Look forward to the next one starting next week. So that'll be a fun one with another designer as we cover, you know, Amelia's favorite genre, mutant animals, anthropomorphic animals, but in a way that actually works.
I didn't cry once, dear listeners. So tune in next week to hear me not cry at all.
That's a best endorsement you can have for that. But before we let you go for today, we do have some calls to action.
First up, if you are enjoying these games, you can check out the Galactic and Going Rogue Kickstarter at the link in our show notes. Today is literally the last day. Imagine me clapping between each of those words. It is literally the last day of the campaign, and we're not sure exactly when it'll end, like what time. So if you have not seen it yet, please go head over right away, right now. Do it. Pause this, go do it, come back.
Absolutely. In other news, our network, the One Shot Podcast Network, is in the midst of a Patreon drive that is continuing this week and this week only. And the future of the network's main programming is likely in the balance if we can't raise some extra funds for them. This includes what happens after this current series of campaign wraps up. New episodes of Star Wall might be on the chopping block potentially, which I would be very sad about. And other shows might need to take a breather for a while if we can't get to a good level of funding to sustain everything that needs with the actors getting paid and all the editing and music and all that sort of stuff. It takes a little bit of funds for that, and we are just at that point where we can't fully sustain things. So we would have to have some pretty difficult conversations. So that is what this drive is for. And this event will feature a variety of performances and shows on the One Shot Twitch channel at twitch.tv/OneShotRPG. And if you head to the One Shot Network Blue Sky page, you'll be able to find the latest schedules, including, I think tomorrow, Tuesday, the day this releases, I will be joining a Monster of the Week one shot with some folks on the network.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff planned. I just wrapped up my NE stuff, so I didn't get to do any of it, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah. It should be a good time, so definitely check it out if you're able to.
If you'd like to help us out specifically, there are a few ways you can do so. We would love if you checked out our Patreon at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. If you are able to help us out, it would allow us to do more for the community and for the show itself. Right around the corner, we'll have more free time to create bonus content to make it a little more worthwhile. I just turned in my NE submission, or my NE's official list. So, woohoo, I'm done. It'll be great. If we get to $160 a month, we are going to hire someone to do monthly webpage updates to our site at charactercreationcast.com. So that'll include adding information to pages dedicated for all of the games that we're covering on the show going forward. And at this level, we will also create a unique enamel pin for our campaign. That's our $10 level backers, and maybe get some extra folks to join up at that level in the future. We are only 2 campaign level patrons away from our goal, so it's not very far at all, and you can help us get there.
Absolutely. If we can go a little bit further and get to $200 a month, not only will that unlock yearly subscriptions for all of our supporters at a discount, it will also mean that we can afford to pay this web person a bit more every month to update the backlog of games that are on the site. And this level is only 6 campaign level backers away, and it would be remarkable if we could get there before the end of the summer.
Joining at the campaign level means that you get new stickers every month that you are a patron, a set of 3 D6 C3 branded dice that are great quality Chessex dice, a personal thank you card from both of us, handcrafted by myself, as well as all of the other perks. So that is all just for $10 a month, and that goes a long way toward helping provide a one-stop shop for any of the games that we cover on the show. So we're so close to that goal if you can help us out. We also have $5 and $1 levels. The $5 level, you do also get the dice too. We never say that, but you do. And so we have various perks at each of those levels. And again, now that my NE stuff is wrapped up, we'll have more time to really put out all of that bonus content. I'm very excited about it. So you can head over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast to get all of that info.
Absolutely. In addition to all of that, we like to thank our current patrons every episode. Your support truly helps out a great deal. So let's go ahead and do that right now, starting with Lieutenant DJG, aka Tigranosaurus, and Eric Bonds. You're the best. Thank you.
Daryl Holiday II, Shadim Cabal, and the Shyest Barbarian. We are so grateful to all of you.
Benjamin Sweeney, Rob Fletcher, and Kevin Brown. You shouldn't have, but we're so glad you did.
Tentacle Duck, John Adamus, and A3 Sketchpad. All of you are wonderful, and I love saying all of your names. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Cole McCallum, Carlos Salazar, and Eric S.
Ian Popmeyer, Liam G., and Brian Colm. Thank you for helping make all of this possible.
Garden GM, Tanglefoot, and Blue Kryptonite. Thank you all so much.
Danny, Nicole Trainer, and Liam Murray. We can't thank you enough, but we will keep trying every week.
We appreciate your support, Kenning, Brian Kurtz, and Mark E. Fair. Thank you.
Drew Owen, Oz, and James McGinley, our deepest thanks to all of you.
Thanks to Sean Metcalf, Robert, and Kevin Bates. So glad to have you backing us.
And thank you, Deadly Edley. Your support means so much to us.
And thank you to all of our future patrons. If you want to join this phenomenal group of individuals, please head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast and help us out. And with more assistance, we'll be able to make those website updates to make exploring your favorite games that much easier. And if you want to join in the discussion with our hosts, some of our guests, and a bunch of fans, head on to our Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com.
In addition to all of that, if you want to help us out in a way that doesn't cost a penny, you can leave us a rating or review for our show on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Podcast Addict, and we will read every 5-star review as we get them, as we both have time to sit down and record together, which again, will hopefully be more.
Absolutely. And that's all we have for today's episode and this series. Join us here next week. We're going to be covering another game, Mutants in the Now, with designer Julian Kay. Fantastic mutant animal game in the spirit of the old Palladium style games.
And I didn't cry.
And Amelia didn't cry. Until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, drink some water, and for one last time, may the space between be with you, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time. Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.